The restaurant lights glowed warmly against the frozen city, laughter spilling through the glass as couples toasted to love and promises. Inside, at a corner table by the window, sat Daniel Reed, a man who, by all appearances, had it all. The youngest CEO in his company's history, known for his charm and ambition. He was supposed to be meeting his dream date that night, a match arranged by a close friend who swore she was perfect for him. But as the minutes stretched into hours, Daniel's confidence began to fade into quiet disappointment. He checked his watch, his phone, then the door again and again. She wasn't coming. Outside, the snow thickened, falling in slow, silent sheets. He sighed, signaling the waiter to bring the bill, when something caught his eye through the frosted window. A woman standing in the snow, clutching a small child to her chest, both of them trembling under the dim glow of a street lamp. She wasn't dressed for the weather, no coat, just a thin sweater and a scarf that looked handmade. The little boy, no older than 4, was crying softly, his face pressed against her shoulder. Daniel hesitated. It wasn't his business. But something about the way she tried to hide her tears, the way her body shook not from the cold but from despair, hit him harder than he expected. Without another thought, he left his untouched wine and walked outside into the snow. "Hey," he said gently, his breath visible in the icy air. "Are you all right?" The woman turned, startled. Her eyes were red, but her voice was calm when she answered, "We're fine, sir. Just waiting for someone." Her lips trembled as she spoke. Daniel could tell she was lying. "Waiting?" he repeated softly. "For a ride, maybe? I can call someone for you." She shook her head, looking down. "No, we were supposed to meet someone here, but—" "I think he changed his mind." Her voice broke on the last words. Daniel felt a pang in his chest, a sting of familiarity. "I think I know the feeling," he said with a faint smile. The woman blinked in surprise. "You were stood up too?" He nodded, glancing at the empty table behind the glass. "Seems like it. Guess we're both having a rough night." A shy, broken laugh escaped her lips. "Guess so." He hesitated, then extended a gloved hand toward her. "Come inside. It's warm. You and your little one shouldn't be out here." She hesitated. I don't want to trouble you." "It's not trouble," Daniel said firmly. "It's dinner. No expectations, no judgment, just warmth." After a moment, she nodded, and he led them inside. The waiters glanced curiously as he pulled out chairs for them. The boy's eyes widened at the sight of the twinkling lights and soft music. "What's your name?" Daniel asked the mother gently. "Sophie," she said, "and this little guy is Noah." The boy grinned shyly. "Hi," he whispered, his voice small but full of wonder. Daniel smiled. "Hi, Noah. You like hot chocolate?" The boy nodded eagerly, and for the first time that night, Sophie smiled, a real, fragile smile that seemed to light the whole room. As they ate, Sophie told him bits of her story, how she worked 2 jobs to support Noah after his father left, how she'd spent her last savings on a gift for that man tonight, hoping he'd finally meet his son, but the man never showed. Daniel listened, every word carving deeper into his heart. "I'm so sorry," he murmured. "You didn't deserve that." She looked down at her hands, embarrassed. "I should have known better." Daniel shook his head. "No, you hoped better." "That's not weakness, Sophie. That's courage." She looked up, her eyes glistening. No one had ever said that to her before. Noah giggled suddenly, his mouth covered in whipped cream from the hot chocolate. Daniel laughed softly and handed him a napkin. "You've got a bit of a mustache there, champ." The boy laughed harder, and soon Sophie was laughing too, the heaviness between them melting like snow in sunlight. Hours passed unnoticed, the kind of hours that feel like a gift. When the waiter brought the bill, Daniel quietly handed over his card before Sophie could protest. "Please," he said when she tried to stop him. "Let me do one kind thing tonight." She hesitated, then whispered, "Thank you, Daniel, for everything." Outside, the snow had stopped, leaving the city blanketed in white. Daniel offered to walk them home, and she agreed. They walked slowly, Noah asleep in her arms, the world around them silent except for the crunch of their footsteps. "You know," Sophie said softly, "I thought tonight would remind me how alone I am. But instead—" She paused, looking at him with tears in her eyes. "You reminded me there are still good people." Daniel's heart clenched. I could say the same thing. At her doorstep, she turned to him, uncertain. "I wish I could repay you." Daniel smiled gently. "You already did," she frowned. "How?" "You showed me what kindness looks like when no one's watching," he said. And that's something I'd forgotten. She stood there for a long moment, snowflakes catching in her hair, before whispering, "Good night, Daniel." He smiled. "Good night, Sophie." As he walked away, Daniel glanced back once more. The lights from her window glowed softly against the falling snow. For the first time in years, his chest didn't feel empty. The dream date he'd been waiting for never came. But the night had given him something far more real. A mother's courage, a child's laughter, and a reminder that love doesn't always arrive dressed in perfection. Sometimes it shows up in the cold, carrying hope in its arms. The next morning, Daniel woke to the soft hum of snowplows and the quiet ache of thoughts that wouldn't let go. He couldn't stop thinking about Sophie and little Noah, the way she had tried to hide her pain behind a gentle smile, the way Noah's tiny laughter had somehow warmed the coldest corners of his heart. He sat in his penthouse, surrounded by glass, marble, and silence. It all looked perfect, but after last night, it felt unbearably empty. For years, Daniel had worked relentlessly, climbing higher and higher until the air at the top grew too thin for joy. But the image of that mother and child, walking into the snow with nothing but each other, haunted him in the quietest way. Something in him whispered that their paths weren't meant to cross only once. Without fully understanding why, Daniel asked his driver to take him to the small cafe again. It was still early. The chairs were stacked and the scent of coffee lingered like a memory. He sat by the same window where he'd waited the night before, his breath fogging the glass. For a long time, he just sat there lost in thought. That's when he noticed something under the table, a tiny blue mitten. He picked it up, realizing it must have belonged to Noah. It was small, frayed, and hand-knitted, the kind of thing money couldn't buy. Daniel turned it over in his hand, feeling a strange tenderness rise in his chest. He slipped it into his pocket as if it were something precious. Over the next few days, he found excuses to visit the same part of town, stopping at the bookstore Sophie mentioned, walking past the park where she said Noah liked to feed birds. He didn't know what he was hoping for, maybe just a glimpse, maybe a second chance. But life has always had its own timing. It was a week later when he saw her again. She was leaving the grocery store.